Campher is a former forex trader who became famous on TikTok when he started championing leftist political ideology. Very interesting pipeline there. He became known for powerful takedowns of the DA, analyses of race and class struggle that were genuinely fantastic. I was a fan. He called out men and patriarchy and misogyny and homophobia, and his endorsement of the economic freedom fighters in the last election went very, very far. He has amassed an enormous audience, including over 230,000 followers on TikTok, guys. And then, over the weekend, he announced he was joining Jacob Zuma's MK party as their head researcher in Parliament. And South Africa went into a meltdown, people. And it's easy to see why. Campher built his reputation on socialist, intersectional political ideology. And the MK party can call themselves progressive as much as they want, but they want to bring back monarchies, people. The word royal is in their constitution. The MK wants to put kings and queens in government just because they are kings and queens born in the right family of the right bloodline. And sure, MK also wants to expropriate. They also preach class struggle. They also talk about proletarian government. But they want to put kings and queens in government, people. Newsflash, the iconic original socialist Russian Revolution led by Vladimir Lenin overthrew the monarchy. They literally killed Tsar Nicholas II, son of Alexander III, son of Alexander II, who all ruled the Russian Empire by birthright. The goal of the Russian Revolution was to end power of a few by birthright and give the people power to govern. And the MK party is trying to do both power to the people and power to the monarchs. It's like someone going vegan because animals deserve better and then eating braai food on weekends. You can't have both. And now, Darren Campher is trying to spin his old politics as being just like these new politics that he has. But he has a lot more to do than just this, because EFF people have been giving him awfulness over the weekend, but many others have too. Because remember, he's being lambasted for signing onto Jacob Zuma's political project. Remember, he also got big for championing feminism, emancipation of women, queer rights, and slamming misogynists and homophobes. Just the other week, he was criticizing Chris Brown, and South Africans who were buying tickets to his concert, he was criticizing them. Well, now I'd love to know from Darren if he believes Fezekile Kuzwayo, better known as Kwezi, the woman who accused Jacob Zuma of raping her when she was a child in a court of law and was forced to flee South Africa to escape the attacks on her that she got for opening that rape trial against Zuma, and then died tragically young. Darren has built his reputation on believing women, believing victims. Does he believe this woman? And while we're here, what does Darren Campher, the queer rights advocate, think of Jacob Zuma saying that same-sex marriages are, quote, a disgrace to the nation and God? What does he think of Zuma doubling down on same-sex marriages earlier this year while campaigning before the election? Zuma said that same-sex rights were repressive. What does Campher think about the literal Mount Everest-sized mountain of evidence from the Zondo Commission that Zuma led the pillaging of our government's money that was meant to fund projects to help impoverished, downtrodden South Africans? Does he think all of that evidence, all of that was lies, all of that smoke? Does he think there was no fire? But aside from Darren Campher, there is a wider chat here that South Africa needs to have about influencers and content creators taking money from political parties and organizations to parrot their talking points. Do you guys remember when MK was trying to convince us that the whole election was rigged and 9.3 million votes were missing? They were trying to use a handful of videos that the IEC investigated and resolved to convince us that, and I'll say it again, 9.3 million votes were missing. That's as many voters as the whole populations of the Western Cape and the Northern Cape combined, including children. We lost the Western Cape, MK? And even though MK has still not provided any evidence to show that the election was rigged and 9.3 million votes were missing, they still pushed it. They actually, MK, ran away from the court case they had opened against the IEC to claim that 9.3 million votes were missing and the election was stolen. They had nothing. And I don't know if you remember around that time, all these content creators were peddling conspiracy theories about the election being rigged. They were just asking questions, asking questions based on a few instances of election system dysfunction and voter fraud, which always happen in every government, in every democracy in the world. When you do everything or anything at scale, small instances happen. Remember those content creators who had never said anything about politics before, or had spoken about politics but never spoken for Jacob Zuma, who was suddenly like, waiting to hear what Zuma has to say about this? this election fraud matter? Now, maybe this is how they really felt. I don't have any screenshots of emails or bank statements to show you they were paid to say that. And some people do twirl for political parties to try and get jobs. They champion causes and spread positions that strengthen whatever political party they're trying to get into, in the hope that the party will notice them and bring them into the fold. Former DA MP Ronaldo Gous twirled and twirled for the DA until they put him on. Roman Kabanak sucked up to DA leaders until he got his government job from John Steenhuisen, that he still has, by the way. He was asked to leave, but he just hasn't. He's still picking up his taxpayer salary. So these influencers may have been twirling for MK's attention around the election. But there is certainly a ton of money flowing around undeclared to people of influence online in South Africa and the world. And this is something we really need to understand and watch out for. Sometimes the political payments to influencers are obvious. Suddenly they're tweeting vote ANC or parroting DA talking points out of nowhere, or wearing EFF merchandise, or particularly performing at ANC rallies, because wow, from the looks of things, that is a bag, an ANC rally. But there is plenty of undisclosed money sloshing around where the brief is, make this point in a way that looks like your genuine position. Make it look like it's what you really feel, and you aren't being paid to say this, and that you aren't spoken for. Because as you all know, sincerity sells better than adverts. What looks like authenticity moves people more than that paid partnership label on TikTok. And we need to be very vigilant. When someone starts talking about politics, we need to be watching out for, what are they speaking on a lot? What politicians and political parties are also holding those positions? What are these influencers choosing not to speak about? What are their blind spots? Who are they always attacking? Almost like those attacks are part of their brand. Who are they always defending, even though when they have to defend someone for bad or questionable behavior, they do it anyway, because there could be hidden money behind them. Here's a quick story for you, actually, from one of the times I got approached, because everybody gets approached all the time once you get a certain following. And when I got this approach, it really made me realize how much this was going on. And remember, all kinds of organizations have a vested interest in politics. This wasn't a political party. Here's what happened. I was contacted by a PR firm acting for an organization that wanted me to criticize South Africa's government. They just wanted me to criticize them, and then they would pay me for the video. That's it. Pretty normal. I am a reasonable South African, which means I have criticized our government plenty. It would have been the easiest money that I ever made. But I don't espouse positions on the world for money. I don't accept payment to fuel somebody's agenda. So I said, no, maybe I would have done a load shedding video anyway, but I wasn't going to do it for money for that reason. And then I did some Googling, guys, and I discovered that this organization was an American right-wing free market think tank whose goal is to create pro-business, anti-worker sentiment in countries where the ruling party broadly has leftist policies and protects workers from capitalist exploitation. They go around the world funding against leftist pro-worker positions. And they wanted me to bash the government to try and get South Africans wanting fewer protections for workers and fewer regulations on big business. And in the email, they had provided some examples of South African content creators who'd made videos for them already. And there were all kinds of creators in there, guys. Big names, medium names, small names, political influencers, lifestyle influencers now talking about potholes, makeup influencers now talking about load shedding. And there were all their videos there bashing the government. And even if they really felt those things, they weren't making those videos from a place of sincerity. They were making those videos for the money. And I know you're now rightly thinking, but did we have to use that photograph? In a past life, I dressed up as a cheese. I don't know why we chose that. We're going to have words with the team after the show. Okay, I know you're now rightly thinking, but Dan, how can we know for sure about you? What about you, Dan? You talk about politics. You make money from talking about the news. You work for a media company. What about you? And that's a very fair question. And like with everyone, there's no way to be certain. I can't show you every email and every money transaction and every conversation I've ever had in person or online. And like everyone else, all I can do is my work, and all you can do is watch and think and decide whether I am trustworthy and sincere and consistent in my principles and what I care about or not. So let's take a look at what people were saying about me this weekend after the Darren Campher to MK news came out, because many people think of us as like doing similar stuff, or at least before this weekend. Before I even knew about Campher's move, I was still asleep. At Doom Dubula tweeted, Dan Corder, you're up next, going to MK. And it wasn't just him. Looney0001 tweeted, Dan, you're next, aren't you? And then I posted yesterday about the Campher move, and people were saying, we need the EFF to help you out. We can't watch you suffer. And don't worry, your political appointment is very close. The EFF is looking for representative appointments, and I'm sure Uncle Carl Niehaus can show you the way. Do you like red or green and yellow? Which means, from some of my content, many people think I would fit in well with the EFF or the ANC. But that's not all people were saying, because there were other people saying, lol, you will fit in perfectly in the DA, and John is coming. So from my content, apparently I would fit in the DA also. Also, can I just say, John is coming is not a mental image I ever wanted to see. And it sounds like a threat. I even got one tweet saying the IFP is sleeping on me, and respectfully, I don't think the IFP wants me. I have about the same amount of isiZulu speaking as Duduzile Zuma. I just won't fit. Now, as you can see, what we do here on this show confuses people. It confuses political parties too. We currently have BCCSA complaints from a bunch of them. And I happen to like that about us, because I have what I think is a healthy distrust of the entire political class, all of them. But I welcome people thinking carefully about whether I have blind spots or favorite people to bash, or if I often bat for viewpoints that certain politicians and parties have, because all of us who report on South Africa, who speak on politics, who present the world and share our views on it and have platforms from which we speak, we must all be scrutinized and questioned all the time. We must all be held up to the light to see what we are doing with our influence over people. And it's a sign of a society in incredible good health when people are monitoring and critiquing all the loudest voices, and when they spot suspicious trends, they speak about them, because there is secret, undisclosed money flowing around, and we may never find out about it, so we need to talk about the trends we are seeing so we can wonder where people's positions are. Dialogue and discourse is how we keep democracy safe and strong.